globalization affects our day-to-day life?
I believe that globalization is colonialism with two major powers. The first is indeed the West, spearheaded by America and the influence of Hollywood and other U.S. institutions throughout the world. The other power is East Asia, namely Japan, but increasingly China as well. Just think about the Japanese animation and games like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! They've swept the U.S. with huge popularity. Japanese anime did not originate in America, it all started in Japan. Thus, we see the power of globalization.
The only constant with globalization is that no one can come to a consensus on the definition of the term.
While some may contend that globalization is the blending of cultures and products to fit specific, or more realistically, different needs or styles, many others believe that globalization is merely a new form of colonialism, as noted by Owen Devereaux in his book, Understanding the Media.
What is media globalization?
What is media globalization?
What is media globalization?
From what we do know, it is at once both powerful and laden with many ambiguities and contradictions.
To understand the concept of media globalization, it is important to recognize the term globalization, which is distinguished by, as Devereaux explains, the convergence of old and new media technologies and organizations to form immensely powerful transnational conglomerates.
Get it right.
Media resources affect us more than we realize. When you purchase a product over internet, you're involving yourself with the media and internet practice.
Also, think about the newspapers we read, the video games we play, and the television shows we watch. They all come from large media organizations that play a role in the media we consume.
To begin to understand the mass media, let's focus on the dominant concepts. It revolves around ownership, technologies, production, content, and reception. These terms are broad and sometimes complicated, but we'll try to make sense of this influential aspect of our culture.
First, the media is the most recent aspect of our society to convert to the globalization trend. It points to an ever-increasingly homogeneous world culture. For example, Western culture in the form of TV channels and programs is transmitted around the world.
Second, media globalism primarily came about due to the main media and communications industries. We'll break down the idea of media globalization into 4 characteristics. Let's start first with the few but powerful transnational conglomerates who control the media industry.
A few dominant conglomerates include Disney, Sony, Viacom, Time Warner, and News Corp. These companies are no longer confined to a single product of distribution.
Consider General Electric. They sell everything from coffee makers to jet engines, and from financial aid to nuclear power technology.
Next, we'll consider how multimedia conglomerates use modern information and communications technologies to globalize media. They work in an increasingly unrestricted environment.
We can assess this unrestricted environment through the global society approach. This perspective plays a key role in uniting the world's different cultures, where people's lives are affected continually by global happenings. Multinational companies attempt to take control of media content with no oversight. These companies are so powerful and vertically integrated that opposition is easily dismissed.
Plus, media industries over-exaggerate the success of globalization. They focus on the global village, which is an ideal vision for the future benefits of globalism. Unfortunately, they incorrectly assume that everybody in the world can use media technology and automatically enter a global society.
This is a huge injustice of globalization. It does not take into account the limitations of technology distribution. In other words, industries overlook information-poor countries almost completely. They prefer to assume that those third world countries will be alright in a few years or so.
Thus, we will put an emphasis on one of the major negative points of globalizing media. Access to media is limited in availability to certain cultures and societies.
There is a physical reduction of distance when technology comes into play. The world is metaphorically smaller. We can instantly communicate with people on the opposite side of the world, and it's all thanks to technology.
If this is what we are capable of now, just imagine what the future has in store for us. Globalization is all about the increasing connectivity between societies and cultures. Despite all the rapid improvements, we must not fail to acknowledge those who do not have such easy access to technology.
For instance, while many products are becoming international, the media is still in many ways confined to those who have the ability to access it. And while this ability is becoming more and more widespread, it is still far from universal.
With the increased awareness of global phenomenon comes the increased risk of exploiting information-poor countries. People are displaced in a very physical manner. Globalization is not a perfect science.
Progress often overlooks negative side effects.
It is important to know the limitations to media access. The Chinese government restricts access to websites that place the government in a negative light. Google.cn is formatted to prohibit access to information about the Tiananmen Square student massacre or the outlawed Falun Gong organization. In Iran, it is illegal to own a satellite dish. From these examples, we now know that government censorship set us a boundary for the progress of globalization.
It is also critical to note that capitalism inadvertently exploits information-poor countries. Global media industries and multinational companies exert pressure on weaker countries until they subdue to consumerism. This can be understood by examining the global capitalism approach.
Finally, what is readily available in one location is federally restricted in other places. The underlying question remains: do the assets of globalization outweigh the drawbacks? The answer, cruel as it sounds, is yes. Media progress is a nearly unstoppable force. True, it has significant liabilities, but as long as technological change increases in our world, the power of media concentration will follow.
All right, that's our project. Thank you for watching.